1 hour later. Tekking101. 2 hours later. Today's video will be about 6 months later. Okay, so, talking about Henry today. I think I'm gonna move it along at a much faster clip, though, to get through this, okay? This will probably be the shortest one. In fact, I'm pretty certain. If it's any longer than any other ones, I'm doing something wrong here, okay? So, some of you might be curious, though, why is Leona here? Because this doesn't look like Henry. No, this looks like a proud lioness in heat. Or in pitched combat. I think for her it's both. But unfortunately, I don't think there's a, well, I know there's not one in English, a tankobon that has Henry on the cover, which is what I've usually been doing for these. There might be one in the Japanese, but I only have the English, obviously. But this is volume 15, which is the same one that Henry first appeared in, so I thought it works. And hey, don't you want to look at Leona? I want to look at Leona. She's right here. She is fabulous. I should do a video on her. I also have this old Christmas decoration we've had for years. It's a church, but the top part of it comes off like this, so I thought it fit for Henry's recombination, like house magic and everything, so you can, you know, turn it into a battle church. Okay, so, Henry Legolant, that's his full name, and I'm not sure, but I am pretty sure that's a reference to Legos, because his whole magic involves taking apart the house that he lives in and restructuring it into anything that he sees fit, so Legos. I don't know if that's the reference you're going with, Tabata, but everything is awesome, everything is cool when you're part of a team, and Henry is certainly happy to be part of this team, whether that be because he's siphoning the magic power out of all of the Black Bulls, which are literally keeping him alive, and if they all moved away out of the hideout, then he would slowly die of magic deficiency, or he just wants people around and he genuinely cares about them. That's anybody's guess. No, it's the latter. He cares about them, not just because they're his friends, but because, like, they are literally keeping him alive. So, Henry's backstory, it's not the most happy. He was born in a noble household, okay? Now, normally how this works, when you're born in a noble household, you're gonna have a lot more magic reserves, higher mana, and all that stuff. Henry, though, was the exact opposite. Not exactly the same way that Asta was, where he was born with no magic power whatsoever. Henry does have aptitude for magic. He has a grimoire and everything, except his magic works by siphoning off other people's magic into himself. It's more of like a disease that he has, okay? So he's basically like a mana vampire, alright? Now, as you could probably imagine, when he was born in the noble house, and he started exhibiting that kind of, you know, magic, you know, siphoning, that magic vampirism, he didn't last very long in that noble realm, okay? They probably looked at him basically like, he's stealing my child's mana! Cast him out to the Forsaken Realm at once! And that's what they did. I can imagine, you know, at the beginning he wanted to just be, you know, have friends and stuff, and I could see him maybe as a toddler playing with some other kids that were nobles, and then, you know, they started getting really weak and having their mana drained, and then they figured out it was Henry that was absorbing it all. But Henry didn't know what he was doing. It's not something he consciously does. It's just something that is just natural part of his body, right? So, his parents, though, took him out of the noble realm and into the common realm, and they basically just set up shop in the Black Bull hideout, although it wasn't the Black Bull hideout back then. It was just this random house, right? Eventually, though, his parents just abandoned him. I don't know if it was stated that his parents lived there for a while with him. I believe it was, or they just kind of dumped him off and then left. But eventually, Henry ended up living alone in this house, just growing up all his lonesome, right? He's also a very frail, very weak kind of guy, so he can't move around very much, so he spends most of his time just bedridden and just siphoning off what little magic power he can. But eventually, if there's nobody else around and he's not having anything to siphon off of, he'll just die of magic deficiency, okay, and his illness and everything. So he pretty much just resigned himself to that fate, just living in a ramshackled old hovel on the edge of the common realm, you know, in a bed in this dirty castle, and just like, well, guess this is it. And then, just like with the situation with Vanessa and a lot of other Black Bulls, Yami just appears out of nowhere looking for a place to live. No, seriously. After Yami became the captain of the Black Bulls, I think he's like, well, I gotta go find a base somewhere. And so Yami was just, I don't know, finding a bunch of randomly abandoned castles and just bursting in and like, is this place appropriate? Nah, I don't like this. And he goes to the next one and the next one. Eventually, he just randomly finds Henry's castle, bursts in, and he's like, oh crap, there's somebody living here. And so Henry's just like, you need to leave at once. That also probably doesn't help the fact that people kind of mistaken him for a ghost. He talks extremely slowly, just like, he has good intentions and everything, but, you gotta move this along, buddy, alright? So even when he's about to have, like, a really cool speech, like, I will not let you harm my friends because they are my... just, okay, we get it. You don't want your friends to get harmed because you care about them and everything, and you're a Black Bull and you have honor and pride. Okay, kick their asses, Henry. That's what you want. Just get to it. But no, so Yami was there, and he's like, okay, well, you mind if I crash here? You mind if I turn this castle into a home base for a Magic Knight squad? That'd be killer. I don't know if we could pay rent, but, and Henry was like, he's pretty chill with Yami. I mean, it was probably the first person he saw in, like, literally years. Henry is only 26, but he spent most of his years completely alone. So he was happy to see someone, happy to talk to somebody, but he kind of warned him, like, you don't understand. Like, I'm gonna speed this up for brevity's sake. He's like, you don't understand. I have this disease where I just absorb mana from other people, okay? I need it to stay alive, so if I don't have anybody around to siphon magic off of, I will die eventually. I was on death's door before you even came in here. But, I'm a nice guy. I don't want to hurt others. Even if it means my own death, I do not want to steal other people's magic, right? And so Yami's rebuttal to this was basically like, oh, okay, I think I get it now. So you're basically telling me you're going to need a lot of magic in your castle in order to stay alive, right? He's like, yeah. And he's like, okay, well, don't worry, because I'll just set up my squad here and you'll have so much magic, your cup runneth over, and Henry, I think eventually he did learn, like, a basic way of controlling how much he absorbs from other people, because that was the case, he would just suck people dry immediately. It doesn't work like that. I think what happened was, after he saw all the magic knights moving in, all the Black Bulls and everything, Henry took just enough to survive, enough to live off of, so he doesn't have to worry about death, but also he's not sucking a lot out of everybody so they'll notice, like if Luck or Magna get back to the base and as soon as they walk in, they immediately get drained for like half their mana, like, oh man, why do I always feel tired when I walk back into this place? It's nothing like that. It's just barely enough. And plus, a lot of the Black Bulls have really high magic reserves. Even if there wasn't a lot of other people around, I'm sure Yami doesn't mind. I'm sure Henry could absorb just enough off of Yami in order to survive, okay? It might also have something to do with, like, the closer you get to Henry, the more gets absorbed, and Henry, for that reason, kind of, like, the Black Bull hideout is kind of like Hogwarts, like the rooms and the hallways are constantly shifting and all that stuff, which makes it very difficult to find the bathroom in the middle of the night, but because of that, Henry could remain hidden indefinitely, okay? Because it's not like, even if one of the Black Bulls got curious and like, let's try to map out every room in this place, it's constantly shifting, and Henry could always change it so the door to his bedroom is like blocked off by a wall. So, it's not like they would ever find him in there, but every now and then they would see him kind of walking the hallways, because probably at night Henry's like, he's shy, he's timid, he's like, well, I don't really know them all that well personally, but I have them to thank for keeping me alive, so I'm just gonna wander out into the hallway and just creepily walk around and just kind of look on them while they're sleeping. And actually, you even see him, like, before his proper introduction in Vanessa's flashback, you see Henry in the background walking on top of a balcony, so there you go. Just, like, he cares about everybody, he wants to be part of it, but I think part of it is he's afraid to come out and reveal himself, because then they'll know what he's been doing and they might not like him for that. Like, what are you doing, stealing our magic without our permission, Yami's perspective on this would basically just be like, hey man, we gotta pay rent. He's the landlord, that he just happens to take rent in terms of mana rather than money, so whatever, I mean, it's fine. And eventually the Black Bulls do learn of his presence, and they're fine with him, they're not, like, mad at him for stealing their mana or anything like that, mostly because he pops out and defeats, Radis and Sally, who are attacking the Black Bull base, and he does so by literally transforming the base into a giant Black Bull mech fighter, and he has, like, rocket punches and, like, corkscrew blows and everything, and he's beating the crap out of all of, like, Radis's, like, wraiths, and Sally's, like, salamanders, he's brawling with them like a kaiju, like, giant robot battle, like, It's great, man. I love it. How could you hate this guy after that's his first introduction, right? It's actually funny because the first time we see him, you know, it's like Gordon and Gray and Gauche that are at the base while everybody else is out doing stuff. Yami is going to the Golden Dawn base, and Asta is, of course, and Zora, they're all at the Royal Magic Knights and all that stuff. And so the base is like understaffed and it gets attacked. And when they attack the base, it gets a little bit of damage. And then you hear, like, you know, it's like damage has been detected, you know, like, you know, self-defense protocol engaged. And then it's like, holy crap, is the base going to transform into a giant robot? Was the base a giant robot this entire time? Well, kind of, yeah, really. It's not really a robot. It's not a machine. It's still just brick and mortar. But that is the focus of Henry's magic. Reconstruction magic. I like to just call it house magic because that sounds cooler to me, right? And plus, his grimoire just happens to have a house on it, so that's kind of cool. It's a unique design, if anything. So yeah, he could take out that grimoire and he could basically remold the base in any sort of shape because he's lived there his entire life. He's kind of like become part of it. So he can turn into a giant like mech fighter, or he can turn it into a running bull where he, you can cover long distances fast. You can mobilize the entire Black Bull squad there. Everybody gets into the building and he can just have it rushed off to a certain location. He can do a bunch of stuff with it. Even if part of it gets damaged, he can kind of like restructure it, although it's stated that there is kind of a limit there. After the battle, I think Gauche was like, is it even possible to repair this damage? And Henry very slowly was just kind of like, I don't know, it might be impossible. So there is a limit to like how much damage it incurs. He can't heal it. But, you know, I think if he just gets enough mana, if he sucks up enough stuff, he'll be okay. So later on, we also find out that Asta is completely aware of Henry's existence. He just never told anybody because Asta has no magic power. He doesn't have to worry about getting it stolen or getting it drained if he's really close to Henry. So him and Henry were actually chilling out, although Asta thought he was a ghost at first. You know, that makes me think like, you know, Asta during the day, he's hanging out with the other members of the Black Bulls and doing missions and everything, but at night, I like to think that Asta takes maybe an hour or two a night to go into Henry's room and keep him company and just talk about stuff and just be like, oh, Henry, you won't believe what happened today. Me and Noelle went into this dungeon and we beat the crap out of this diamond guy and Noelle's shirt got ripped and it was freaking nuts, you know, and I got a new sword. And Henry's like, oh, that's so cool, Asta. You know, so Asta's the one that's kind of keeping him company and letting him know about all the stuff that's going on in the Black Bull squad and stuff. And I think that push might have helped him. Like, even if the base didn't come under attack, maybe he would have eventually revealed himself. But hey, I mean, Yami and Asta both know about his existence, but they didn't reveal it to the rest of the crew just because I think that's, you know, Henry has to do this himself. You know, he has to come out and, like, reveal himself to the whole squad and trust them and they would be fine, right? So, yeah. Now, the next fight that he's part in is after Gauche becomes, what's his name? Dro, I think his name is, the elf that's reincarnated into Gauche's body. He's part of that fight as well. And so Asta and a lot of the other Black Bulls are there, and we also get to see another application of his house magic, his reconstruction magic, where he can literally make like a mini version of his house. Like, he can literally make like a tiny little cube barely able to fit like 2 or 3 people, but it can fly and stuff like that, you know, as long as he takes like these, I think it's the bricks that really do it. It's like because he's endowing his power and his presence into the literal foundation and the structure of the Black Bull hideout. As long as he has those bricks, he can mold them into whatever shape he wants, like Legos, basically. And so he uses that to kind of get around, and his shining moment here was when he basically went to dive bomb on Gauche, who's being reincarnated as an elf, to try to absorb all that magic power into himself, because that's what he does best. And he's kind of like sacrificing himself for the rest of the Black Bulls. He's like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. Because you guys helped me out, and you helped me live, and you gave me a new lease on life and everything, I'm going to jump off my house, and I'm going to dive right down on the elf, and I'm going to use my power to absorb all their magic, and then you'll be able to win. So he attempts this. He doesn't manage to absorb it because elves have an insanely high amount of mana, so he isn't able to absorb everything, but he is able to help out, and eventually they do save him, so he doesn't die. He lands, I think, with Charmy there. Charmy's actually going to be the next video, so get pumped for that. Charmy video coming up next. But yeah, so that just shows that Henry is extremely grateful to everybody. You know, it's not like, you know, it's not like he only views them as life support. It's not like he's like, the only reason you guys are around is to keep me alive. You know, he's not that kind of a greedy guy, because he was all ready to just, you know, just let his life just run out before Yami, you know, ran into him. And now all of a sudden he's probably, after hearing all the stories that Asta told him and everything, and he, of course, because I think he's absorbing their mana, I think maybe he has a good idea for, like, the personalities of everybody he's absorbing it from. So he feels like he knows them, even though he doesn't personally know them. So there's that. So that was his shining moment, and I don't really think Henry's done anything major since that fight with Gauche. So yeah, that was his moment, but nothing really since then. And because of that, his rankings in the popularity polls aren't really all that good. I think he was 29th in the second one, right after, like, this was like 6 chapters after his first appearance. And the newest one that just got released, he's like 28th. He's moved up like 1 spot. You know, so it makes sense though. I mean, it's been a while since that moment with the fight with Gauche and everything, and you know, he doesn't really have a lot of other appearances. But I'm hoping after everything quiets down, after the battle with the elves, as everything is over, which it kind of already is, it's kind of wrapping up now in the last chapter, I'm hoping all the Black Bulls will get together and they'll be like, okay, now, what's the story with this guy here? You know, like, it's like, hi, everybody, it's nice to be part of the team. You know, it's like, all right, life story, go. He's like, wait a second, were you that creepy ghost that was watching me when I was sleeping that I woke up and saw that one time? Yeah, guilty as charged. But I think he'll just become a little bit more social. Now, he's still rather frail, so he can't move around as much. We get his stats, and his stat in strength is the lowest. It's like 1, so he's not a physical fighter, okay? That goes to show, like, he's good support, you know, obviously, because he could turn the hideout into a giant mech and beat the crap out of enemies. That's handy for support. Or if somebody's attacking the base, they could just, everybody get in the base, let's evacuate! You know, turning it into a giant fighter jet or something and flying away. Okay, he probably can't do that. Okay, no, actually, maybe he could, because he can make the magic little mini house and he can kind of float around in that, so why couldn't he turn the base into a fighter jet or a blimp or something and just, you know, fly away? Maybe he could. I don't know. If he has enough magic, he might be do kind of pretty much anything. You know, just everybody just like, all right, everybody give Henry your magic, and then just pour it into him, and he's like, I have the power! And he just turns the whole base into a huge, like, battleship or something, and just launches cannons and everything. Like, that'd be pretty sweet. But yeah, I think a lot more people are going to start coming up to Henry and talking to him, and I think he's going to be more prevalent in the story moving on into later story arcs and everything like that. Also, I mean, you know, I'm not saying it's impossible for him to die, but if he dies, they kind of don't have a base anymore, because it's possible that if he dies, because his magic is so endowed into the building itself, like, the building might collapse if he's not part of it, you know what I mean? So if he dies. So he might be safe for a while. But yeah, I definitely want to see more of Henry. Dude needs a haircut. That's step 1. I mean, it looks like he hasn't cut his hair like his entire life. Because he's 26 and his hair looks like it reaches down to like his ankles. So it looks like it hasn't been cut his whole life. So cut his hair. That's step 1. So now my last question for this is, are there going to be any other hidden members of the Black Bulls hiding around? Because Zora showed up and we didn't know he was a member. Like, oh, Zora's a member. And then, like, only, not like right after Zora was introduced, but, you know, a few dozen chapters later, not long actually, that's when we found out Henry existed. So it's like, are there going to be any other members, like, living in the sewer system underneath the Black Bull hideout? Like, oh, that's Richard. He's also a member of the Black Bulls that was never mentioned up to this point. So, yeah, I like Henry. I want to see more of him. Let me know what you guys think about him below and what some other stuff he can maybe do in the series and some other stuff he can do with his Lego house reconstruction magic, which is pretty sweet. You know, oh, he could go combiner robot. You know, maybe he could have like some other, you know, like magic that combines with his house and makes like a drill bit. Like if somebody has like a steel magic, like that dude from the Golden Dawn, he can make like a giant steel drill that can attach onto the Black Bull hideout, and he can have like a drill punch or something. Like the possibilities with this are endless. You can make this work, okay? Yeah, I want to see more of this into the future, right? So yeah. But yeah, that's all about Henry. Thanks for watching, everybody. Next video will be all about Charmy, and we just found out some stuff about Charmy in the latest arc, so that'll be a fun video, and I think she's a fan favorite. So yeah, Tekking, signing out. Later, everybody.